three first panelists then join us. So Igor and Andy and Maya are joining me on the screen. Great to have you here. Thank you very much. Igor, as well as being from the University of Zagreb, is also from our EDMO Advisory Board, our Advisory Council, and so too is Maya. And Andy is joining us from one of the hubs, the Broad Hub, the Bulgarian-Romanian hub. And we thought it would be really interesting just to start off the discussion this afternoon and to get us warmed up a little by doing a quick round of asking you the questions, because you're all observers and practitioners. How would you characterize the status of media literacy at the moment in Europe? What stage are we at the moment? And I'm going to come to you, Igor, if I could first. What stage are we at?
Hi, Sally. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here together. And I think this is really important topic for the end of the year. And I'm definitely sure that we will start next year with so many other discussions, as you already saw, just based on the documents that we have prepared for you. But it's also interesting to try to come back and see what we have already achieved. So when I look back at most of the activities that I have personally participated or analyzed or mapped or monitored, I think that we can say that the media literacy community at the moment is fragmented, but with great outputs. And for this reason, I would like to emphasize several things. It's so good to have a good and solid-based analysis and evaluations that we already have in our community. And I'm coming back to great work from Maya from 2016, when they published the mapping of media literacy practices. And I'm sure that she will provide some feedback on this as well, because that's the first time that we saw who are the main stakeholders in our community. And personally, as I participated and was reporting for Croatia, I was in a way shocked to see that we are missing some of great and probably very important stakeholders, such as journalist organizations, to participate also in this field. We saw that we have huge predominance of NGOs, civil society sector, followed by academia. But for my personal experience, that was not enough. For this reason, I said that we have fragmented scene at the moment. Second thing that I would like to emphasize is that we have so many great activities throughout Europe, but we are not familiar with all these activities. We are not informed. We lack a great network community that would help us to be more informed, to exchange our knowledge, experience. And thanks to the huge projects that we have at the European level that are predominantly financed by European Commission or some other stakeholders, we are trying to boost dissemination activities, but I personally think that this is not enough at the moment. Second thing that I would also like to emphasize is the language barrier. What we have learned, and I'm again speaking from our experience from Croatia, is that we have so many good practices from different states, but we are not able to use them if we are not trying to contextualize them and localize on our local languages. And I would definitely opt for many other activities where we would initiate some new projects that would help us to go through this language barrier or even gap that we are witnessing at the moment. And this is also reflecting on the number of activities, because this language barrier and the challenges that I already mentioned are maybe one of the obstacles that we can identify today. And maybe they are one of the reasons that we are not better connected or informed on most of the activities that we have. And for this reason, we have some overlapping activities. But even when we look at the financial aspect, I think that we can say that we are financing some activities even twice or third, on the third level as well, on local level, on national, international level. And that's the thing we should also discuss probably in the future. However, I still think that we are a great community, and I'm coming from the information and communication framework. I was journalist at my first level, then I entered the academia, and I have met so many new initiatives and colleagues that are working really hard. Most of them through intrinsic motivation. They have produced so many different activities. And I think that's the best value of our community at the moment, that we have so many different angles. And I'm sure that even today in our discussion, we will see that we have so many different perspectives when we will decide and discuss in the second part of our conference today. So these are the challenges, definitely. But as I said, I think that we have such a good material to work with, and the best value of it are the people. And some of them I see here today, and I would like to welcome them all. And thank you for being a part of this conference today.
Thanks, Igor. A very comprehensive answer. Thank you very much. Maya, if I can come to you, because indeed that study that was carried out by the European Audiovisual Observatory under your leadership really did mark where we were back in 2016. What about now? How do you think it is now? How would you characterize it now when you look back over those years? 7 years, not that long, I guess, but still, a lot has changed, huh?
Lots has changed, and I would say that at that time we were maybe in the era of adolescence of media literacy. Now I think we are in the stage of getting into maturity. Things are getting more scientific, probably also thanks to the fact that there is a big and solid academic research community who is engaged, but also because the states are taking more responsibility. From what I can see and feel, I mean, compared to what we published in 2016, where there was a huge predominance of non-statutory duty with regard to the stakeholders that were involved, now there is some kind of a shift. There is more public funding involved. The state is taking responsibility. Public actors are more significant, and the scope is also wider. It starts even from preschool. It's going into curricular activities. There was not so much about that in 2016. Now there is a big attention to schools, but also on the trainers. Who trains the trainers? Who educates the parents? This is now part of the picture, and they were a little bit neglected at that time from what we saw. There was not really a comprehensive approach into how to put things together. I'm wondering if maybe a little part of the merits of this is to be recognized to the Audiovisual Media Services Directive, which was revised, as we all know, in 2018, entered into force 2 years later, making it now finally mandatory for member states to step up and to take responsibility and take action. So not only member states, but also video sharing platforms themselves. They're all now charged with specific tasks to adopt tools and appropriate measures. And also, and this I think is an important element, to report about them. Because only when you have a reporting obligation and you have to put things on paper, then you will also be able to show what has been done, which milestones have been reached, and what is the baseline for the next step. So I think maturity is the stage we are in now, but still, it's a long, long period, I think.
We're a long way from being adults, I think, from that point of view. I think it also would be strange if we didn't also recognize the fact one of the main drivers at the moment is, of course, the fight against disinformation, which is putting so much attention onto media literacy these days. I think, you know, we've all recognized that very much so. Andy, if I can come to you, how would you characterize media literacy now at the moment? Are we at the toddler stage or are we growing up? How is it?
I think it's pretty chaotic. So probably closer to the toddler stage, where we still have a lot of fun and experimenting with different approaches. I would totally agree with Igor's assessment that we have a fragmentation. We have all sorts of people trying different things, and some of these work. I also agree that in many cases, sadly, we just don't understand. We don't get to hear when something really works. So that's sad, and that's a reason I think why there's so many overlapping initiatives. So a lot of educators and media literacy practitioners, we seem to be doing the same thing over and over. We think that it's from different angles, but in most cases we're just repeating models, and we're repeating models because they seem to be popular, not because data shows us that they're efficient and effective in their achievement. So I think we owe a great debt to the public and to the, especially within the education training system, to make sure that what we do is properly evaluated, is properly assessed. We either have a set of common standards, or at least we have some sort of transparency of how exactly did I carry the evaluation of my last initiative, and how this can help the colleagues down the way. I think that, again, link between media literacy and disinformation, that needs to be stressed harder and harder, because this is where this is the weak point. I think that we owe a lot to the students and to pupils even in schools. We need to show them how this information works. And it's not just about, okay, here's a media, this is how media are financed, and this is what is a journalistic or editorial point of view. So we need to show them when they're manipulated, how does this happen? What are the specific mechanisms that our brain employs when it processes information? How are these mechanisms hijacked by very experienced professionals, also media literacy professionals, by the way, just like us, but probably on the dark side. So if I have to single out a few things, these are a lot of diversity, at least on the surface, but at the same time we repeat models without knowing whether they work and how effective they actually are.
Well, let me move the conversation onto that then, of course, because that's one of the topics that we come around to a lot, assessment and evaluation. How do we measure actually what it is that is happening, is being effective and is having an impact? And it's not unreasonable that people ask this question, of course, because we're all putting effort and resources in. And I just wondered how possible each of you feel it is to successfully evaluate media literacy interventions, and if so, what kind of mechanisms that you think are the most effective? If I could come to you, Igor, first. Evaluation is a tricky question, I know. Any thoughts you'd like to share?
I think it's a necessity in order to be, able to further develop any media literacy project. I think that's one of the main preconditions we need to have. And yes, we were forced to do so by other stakeholders or by sources of financing when they ask us, okay, can you provide some assessment at the end? Was it successful? What type of dissemination did you have? Outputs, reflections. So it's rather complex, and maybe that's the problem if we focus most of the activities just on the civil society organizations, and if they don't have sufficient knowledge in this area, that's the probably area where our colleagues from academia can jump in and help and provide some models that could be useful. I mean, thinking from the smallest and the easiest level is that we just do the pre-test and post-test of any type of workshop that we have. So it's not that the idea is that we need to have a large, comprehensive, systematic, complex approach that we usually use within our scientific research. So we need to adopt and adjust it to the local level or to any type of activity that we have in our member states. But yes, it is a necessity. And I would definitely ask for even more patience in this area, because I know that sometimes we don't have enough time. We are limited with resources. We have time problems, facility as well. So we need to further develop these types of evaluations. We had some great initiatives, even it's a large time, 2009, if I remember, initiatives from EAVI and Danish Technological Institute. They were the first ones to make these types of assessment at our European level, focusing just on media literacy. Yes, we had some other interventions as well, but these models are developing, and we should definitely open this as the most important question, even as a type of precondition for any further support. And I think that is one of the most important questions for us in the working group as well, within EDMO, but even on a larger scale.
And I think everyone will see also when Emma presents what we've worked on so far, just how important, we consider the kind of ideas we have so far. But Maya, can I ask you that as well? I mean, what thoughts do you have about evaluating media literacy? How easy is it to do? Do you think there's good practice that can be shared?
Well, first of all, it has to be planned. I think that is a key asset, because from what I see from our little observatory, both at EDMO and at the Audiovisual Observatory, is that there is a certain fatigue. It comes usually as an exercise at the end of the project. Maybe it's not planned. It is, as Igor pointed out, time-consuming. You have to repeat certain exercises in order to be able to assess if there has been an impact. And it also costs. So there, Igor, I agree with you. Resources are key, and they have to be planned. That's why planning is so important. You need to make sure that you have the time that you need to do the evaluation. You need to have the money to do it. And then, this would be my third element to suggest, you need also to have some clear boxes to tick. because an assessment must also be comparable with others if the exercise shall be of value for the general community. And informations, even if they are on a local level, they can be exploded and translated into more general clusters. For example, when we did the mapping in 2016, I have added the link in the chat box. We looked at various elements, which stakeholders were involved, which networks were targeted, the kind of projects, the media literacy skills that were developed, the sectors that were covered, the geographic outreach, the audience groups. All these elements are interesting in order to make a proper assessment of what kind of, for example, impact the work had. This is an important question. Did the project make a difference from before and after? If we don't have a baseline in order to see what kind of progress has been made, this exercise will be pretty much impossible. And also the usual basic questions: what worked well, what can be improved, what did not go well, what can we learn from what has been done? And then, speaking of resources, well, was there value in putting money into the project? Will we be able to get the money again if we ask for another financing in the future? But for all these elements, it is important that assessment exercise is planned timely enough, so that we don't end up with the question that it's difficult to convince, for example, colleagues and people in the field to do the same exercise in order to assess if there was a difference.
Yeah.
So planning.
Yeah, which we'll be emphasizing. Just a quick input from you, Andy, on this, just before we move on to our speakers.
Yeah, just a couple of highlights, Sally. I would really like to see more of a, it's a big word, longitudinal approach, as opposed to, I mean, before and after is great, but even greater would be if we can measure this over time and see how the effect that we make, how the impact is probably fading away, at what speed is it fading away, so we can plan repeated interventions just to keep the pace. I also see a lot of pro forma evaluation, like did you like the training or did you dislike the training, with smiley faces and stuff like that. Obviously, it's not much of a help to practitioners. I would like to think when we do such initiative, I would like to think it as a part of something bigger, as a part of a longer path that is not necessarily limited to media information literacy as a single discipline or a subject in school. That is a complex living organism made of many parts. So I like to think of every intervention of adding something to the cluster of competencies. And if we manage to keep this machinery working together, so understanding what others have done with this particular group that we're training at the moment, probably, and how we build up on that, and what else could be done after us. That sort of comprehensive approach to evaluation, that's something that I very much like to see more often.
Thank you very much, Andy and Igor and